right, my English teacher friends, Kristian Kuhn coming at you again, affectionately known as the Bob Ross of composition. And this is video number 3 in my series of 4 videos in which we go over all 20 sentence patterns. And in this particular video, we're going to go over patterns 10 through 15. So before we dive in, let's say this. Please subscribe to the channel. It's called Kristian Kuhn, the Bob Ross of composition. Tell your friends, colleagues, students, spread the word far and wide, and let's have this thing grow. So just a quick overview of why I do this and kind of the impetus behind it. I go over this in the first 2 videos, so I'm going to kind of go quick over this. So the impetus for this comes from Strunk and White's seminal text called Write It Right. In that book, they have something called rule number 18, in which they espouse that there's 12 different ways to cobble together a single sentence. But here's the kicker with that. With those 12 sentence types, there's 20 ways to pattern them. And I'm obsessed with helping my students get the sophistication point on both the Lang and the Lit exam. And I'm a strong contender in this, that if students can augment their vocab, so I have my Word Study Academy, but also break their droning flow and rhythm by stacking independent clause upon independent clause, they're in better contention for that sophistication point. So I think the two of those go hand in hand. And for those of you that are not familiar with Strunk and White's Write It Right, I have a link below in the description. You can have a PDF copy of that. And I also have all the slides contained in this video. And then for video 1 and video 2 that go over the earlier patterns, just backtrack and you can have access to those as well. So one of the texts that I consulted to build these lessons is called The Art of Styling Sentences by Anne Longknife and Katie Sullivan. Very good text, and I'm just going to kind of borrow their framework for this and draft my own sentences, which takes me to the next point here. I always Bob Ross my instructions, so like just talking about this in the ether is going to confuse the heck out of kids because there's a lot of verbiage, there's a lot of jargon. So for each pattern, I model it 5 times. And it's just a basic follow my lead, monkey see, monkey do. I do it 5 times, students do it 5 times, craft 5 patterns on their own. So I think this is a fantastic way to teach voice rhythm and flow and just add a wrinkle of nuance to kids' writing that ordinarily is not there, especially for our struggling and emerging writers. So let's jump right in and take a look at pattern number 10. This is actually pattern 10A. So it's a variation, a positive, single or pair or series. And students often look at that verbiage and they're like, what the heck is that? So let's unpack it so they can pretty much identify what that language is through the examples. So here's number 1. They have always been my favorite band, the Grateful Dead. So in this, we're going to use a dash and kind of just end with the focal point, sort of like the exigence of the sentence right at the end after that dash. So it's a bit of a sentence inversion when you do this. Here's another one, number 2. A teenager spends its whole life in one environment, their bedroom. So you're just twisting the arrangement of the sentence around, placing things that usually come first, second, and vice versa. Here's number 3, a little longer sentence, but same old pattern. The invention of the cell phone pushed society in a new direction, but also presented a major problem. Students are always on them during instruction. So it's just pattern, pattern, pattern. Usually after 5 times, kids are like, oh, I see what's going on. The objective of the game is simple. Don't get gobbled up by the hungry hippo. So one of the things that you can do in this too, and I talk about this in the other videos, is you can do things called duoing, trioing, quadrupling. So you kind of enumerate after the dash. And I'm just going single here. Don't get gobbled up by the hungry hippo. But you could add a couple of commas there and extend that if you want to. So I've seen that often in sentence patterning. And the last one. When hiring a new employee, I look for one thing, their ability to type real fast. And as I explain this to the kids and as they try their hand at it 5 times, We often do this conversationally. Like I take inventory of my audience, and oftentimes I can look in their eyes and say, they ain't getting what I'm saying here. So we sort of punctuate the air with explanations and asides and parentheticals. And as writers, we also have to do that in our writing. So students are going to try pattern 10A 5 times, and I'll quickly just show you pattern number 11. And I'll fly by the other ones and keep this video short. So pattern number 11 is an interrupting modifier between subject and verb. And it's just what I alluded to. It's that punctuating the error with parentheses and asides and qualifications and explanations mid-sentence. I did it 5 times, so follow my lead on this. Number 1, the art of bunting the ball. Once you've mastered the technique, will definitely earn you the cleanup spot. Right, so between the dashes there, you just have that qualification, right? That explanation. And it's a pretty cool technique. Here's another one. Coyotes that live in Yellowstone. And then I add this aside between the parentheses here because I'm imagining that my audience might not know what I'm talking about. So just look at this. Coyotes that live in Yellowstone, once on the brink of extinction, have seen a remarkable resurgence in recent years. It's really good in argument, which all expository writing is, to have parenthetical statements every now and then to really unpack what you're doing, your textual support and your textual analysis. Here's another one. The best coffee in the world from the likes of Ethiopia, Somalia, Gabon has a very earthy flavor that is also quite robust. So I talked about this just a second ago. So I got a trio in there, right? Ethiopia, Somalia, Gabon, just sandwich it between the dashes. And one of the things I notice in reading students' work on both the Lang and the lit exam, I don't see this all that often. Like I could literally read like 100 papers and seldom see a kid use a dash or a semicolon. And these little syntactical flares are very, very essential to the cultivation of that voice rhythm and flow. Here's number 4, just to solidify it. My family of origin, a bit neurotic and obsessed with food, always has a huge Italian feast each Sunday after church. So again, you just sandwich that parenthetical in there, the aside, and then the qualification and the explanation of things. And the last one, number 5, the sports towns who have lost franchises, Montreal, Seattle, Rochester, suffered huge economic losses. So I did the trio between the dashes again. So students, as always, just try that 5 times. And I'll just run through this real quick and have a short video. So pattern number 12 is an introductory or concluding participles. With present, you end them in ing. Past, you do D or ED, and then the irregular ones students need to memorize. So this one took a lot of explaining, and as you can see here, I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I actually needed to do a couple more Johnny on the spot because it's a little confusing. I think that's the hardest one. And as always, after kids see it 5 times, they do 5 on their own. And pattern 13 just gets at a single modifier out of place for emphasis. And I'll just show you one here. As a whole, the meat industry is pretty cruel to animals. So you have the as a whole, at the beginning. I'll show you number 2. To begin with, you cheated on the test. So we do that all the time in speech, and it's a good idea to do it in writing. Very easy construct, but again, it's one of those things where once students see it, it's knowing half the battle, and they begin to transition that into their writing. 14 is a prepositional phrase before subject or verb. And as you can see, I got 5 here. I'll show you number 1. After 3 air balls, Shaq sunk the game-winning free throws. And just for good measure, I'll show you number 2. For a long time, I've been a vegetarian. So just good sentence variety when you get into stuff like that. Kids will try it 5 times. You're getting the gist of it. In pattern 15, an object or complement before subject and verb. So clearly kids need to know the parts of speech just a tad bit in order to do this. And of course, they need to know semicolons, colons, dashes, commas, all that stuff, which I go over in my Nuance Academy with Strunk and White. And I have a ton of exercises in the YouTube channel for that. So you can quickly see the other slides here and just give them lots of examples on how to do this, and they should be good to go. So I'm going to wrap this up. I'll make video number 4 later on today so that the whole series is there, because I know student or teachers are gearing up for test prep. And this is just a nice little wrinkle or caveat to test prep to bolster up kids' chances to get the sophistication point. If you need to reach out to me for any reason, give me an email at teachingwritingcoach@gmail.com. I also have a web page full of goodies, teachinghowtowrite.com. And I'll quickly run through some of the PDs that I'm going to be offering over the next couple of months. So I'm a lead teacher for the National Writing Project, and one of the things I overwhelmingly heard from my Teach It Right 5-week mastermind is this: man, Kristian, I wish that I could have taken that one-on-one with you, because my needs are so specific. My demographics are, very particular, and my, district's constraints are very unique. And if you could have tailor-made or custom-made that just for me, it would have been awesome. So that's what I'm doing. I'm going to do a one-on-one mentorship over the summer months. So if you'd like to work with me and go over things like my Nuance Academy, my Word Study Academy, my heuristics, all this stuff that I'm doing in the YouTube channel, and do a real deep dive into it, let's work one-to-one. I've taught AP Lang and AP Lit for over 22 years. I've taught the gamut 9 through 12 on level, even some credit recovery. And I am a college professor as well. And then I also listened to the folks who said, Kristian, I'm a teacher. I don't have time for 5 weeks of courses. How about you make a self-paced course? So I did that as well. And if you want to learn more, just go to my website. There's a big, thorough description on that, and some samples as well. And then the last thing that I've been doing this a lot the last few years, my alternative grading methods. I really ditched traditional grading years ago. I think it's for the birds. I did not sign up for compulsory unpaid overtime when I became an English teacher. So I invented some alternative grading methods so that I could reclaim my evenings and weekends, but also put the onus of learning back onto the students, because in the traditional grading paradigm, 99.9% of the onus is on the teacher. And I think that precludes learning. So I'm offering a 2-hour intensive, and I'm doing this one-on-one or in small groups if you want to do it with your department. And again, the web page has more information on that. So just reach out, drop me an email, and we can talk specifics if you want. All right, I'll record video number 4. That's the end, and I'll see you around.